Okay, so the first thing we need to do for our toaster biscuits is activate our yeast. So we're gonna get our 1 cup of water up to about 110 degrees. I'm gonna do it in the microwave because I don't have a hot water faucet. So I'm gonna put it in the microwave for about 30 seconds. We'll see where it's at. Alright, so after 30 seconds, I'm going to check it with my thermopen just to see where we're at. First stir because it's water and it can get hot spots. 102, 103. I'm going to put it back in for just a couple seconds. There we go. Now your timing is all going to depend on how hot your tap water is when you start. So you might, if it's already hot, you might not need to warm it in the microwave. If it's not, well, warm it in the microwave. Alright, now we're going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of yeast to it. Now, if you have just those little packets, just one of those little packets that you can get at the grocery store. I don't have those because I do so much. I just use this. And then you're going to add in about a teaspoon of sugar, something to let the yeast eat while it's getting activated. Once you've got it added, you just want to stir it together. All right, and now we are going to let it sit for about 10 minutes and get activated. Okay, so while our yeast is getting all bubbly here, we are going to measure out our flour. Okay. Alright, so we need 3 cups of flour. Now, you can do this in a lot of ways. You can do the dip and scoop. I just, because I've got it in this container right this moment, I just measure, dump it in. It's about, so there's 1. There was some splashed over. This is not going to make another. A bit close. Oh, we might actually get it. Alright, so there's slightly over 2. And there's 3. And now I'll eventually dump that bag back into there. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of salt.
Can I do that? Dump it in.
Sure, you can dump it in, sweetie. Hold on. One sec. Alright. Oh. And our yeast is ready. Awesome. Thank you, sweetheart.
Welcome. I love this.
Alright. So, we've got our dry ingredients, and now we're just gonna mix them together real quick.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, it's actually 2 teaspoons salt. Sarah, you wanna help me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, dump it in. There you go. Thank you.
It's pretty.
One sec. Alright, and then we just mix it together just to evenly distribute it before we get our wet ingredients into it. Alright, so alright, so we've got that mixed together. Now we are going to dump in our yeast and water. Now we're going to heat up our milk. So we have warm milk in it. Alright, so we have 3/4 of a cup of milk here, and we've heated it back up to about 110. And then we are going to dump it in. And then we are also going to add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Now we use vegetable oil because olive oil can impart some of its flavor into it.
Can I dump it?
Yes, hold on. And we don't necessarily want olive oil flavoring in our toaster biscuits because it doesn't always go well with everything. Good. Thank you, Sudie. All right. And now we are going to mix it. All right, and now we are going to mix until smooth. Alright, and now that it is mixed to smooth, or mostly smooth, we are going to cover it and let it sit for an hour.
Okay.
Okay, so now that our batter is been risen and it's got some fluff to it, we're going to heat our pan over medium-low heat. And we're going to sprinkle some cornmeal into it to help keep everything from sticking. And then if you have the crumpet rings, use those, or if you stay tuned to the end, I will show you how to make tinfoil ones. And we're going to let these warm up for a few minutes. So once your rings are warmed up and your pan's warmed up, we're going to deflate our batter. Just gently stir it. And we're going to add about a 1/4 cup into each ring. so once that's in there, we're gonna set our timer and we're going to let this one side cook for about 10 minutes or until the bottoms start to pale out a little, get pale brown. This is a slow process. We're not making pancakes, so we just cook them over low heat. And like I said, about 10 minutes, and then we will flip them. So there's still a few minutes left on my timer, but just to check them to make sure we don't burn them, I'm gonna take my tongs here because these are hot little rings now. Just take it and just gently turn it over. Oh, that's fairly golden brown. Ow. Don't touch the pan, it's hot. So we're gonna take them and just gently flip them over. Now, because they chose to stick to the edge, I'm just lodging them very gently with a knife, just to get them. There we go. So time for about 5 minutes because we're just cooking the other side. Now we will check them again in a few minutes to make sure that they're browned but not burned. Alright, so it's been about 5 minutes, so let's check our biscuits, toaster biscuits. Nice golden brown color. So I'm going to call this batch done. So we're going to take them and move them over to our cooling rack. Alright, let's redistribute our cornmeal a little. Let's turn our pan down a little bit and see if we can't get some better results. Now this time, we're going to spray our crumpet rings. So just going to spray our rings down so that they don't stick as badly this time around. Alright, let's let our rings warm up just a little. Alright, so this time I'm going to use probably just a little more. So a rounded 1/4 cup. and this time I'm going to set it for about 8 minutes instead of 10 because that's about where we pulled it off last time, and it's just a good place to check them and see if we need more time. So 8 minutes. Alright, so it's been about 8 minutes, and let's take a look here. Remember, these springs are hot, so be careful with them. Yeah, a nice golden brown color. So let's go ahead and flip them. Really need new tongs apparently. There we go. And then let's set it for about 5 minutes and check them again and see if the bottom sides are done. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. Let's take a look at them. They're getting there. I'm gonna give them a couple more minutes just to make sure that they get cooked all the way through. We don't want doughy centers. Alright, so we gave them a couple more minutes and let's take a look at them. Much better. Alright, so we're going to move these to our cooling rack and let them cool down a little. And we are going to... Alright, so now we're just going to repeat the process with the rest of our biscuit dough. Okay, so they are all done. The batter's all cooked, but you'll notice there are some differences. So this one here was deflated. We deflated the dough before we put it onto the pan, where this one and this one weren't so deflated. Didn't mix up the dough before I put it into the pan. You'll also notice that there's some variation depending on how uniform the dough is measured out when I put it into the little rings. So it's kind of all up to you on how fluffy you want your biscuits to be. This is like a great size to feeding to Miss Go-Go. She likes this size. This size is a little bit nicer for cutting in half and doing Eggs Benedict or jam and peanut butter. You'll also notice when you slice into it, you can also just use it with a fork. If it's not deflated, there's a lot more little nooks and crannies to catch all of the yummy stuff that goes in onto it. So it could be Hollandaise sauce, peanut butter, jam, butter, depending on what you want to do with it. Where when they're thinner like this, you don't have all these air pockets in it because you've removed them when you deflated the dough. So it's all a little up to you. I personally prefer them a little more inflated versus flat, but sometimes the mix is nice, especially when I've got Miss Go-Go and she's hungry. And here you go. Anyways, it's all up to you, but this is toaster biscuits, and it's one of my favorites for things like Eggs Benedict. So enjoy. Okay, so when I made the toaster biscuits, or really you can even use them for cakes, I have crumpet rings. I really like these. I use them for a lot of things, including sushi. So they're really nice and versatile. But if you don't have these, and all you have is some tin foil, you can make something close enough that will work for you. So what you want is about a 5-inch piece of aluminum foil. Doesn't have to be perfect. Smooth it out a little. Then we're going to fold it in half. I'm going to fold it in half again. Now, to make it fit together, I would just like to slide them in between the layers. You can use tape to secure it. I get a little finicky about that because I just don't want the tape to release any of its adhesives into my food. So I just like to slide it together. Now, if you want like perfect circles, and you can just use your fingers and get close enough, or if you have something about the size that you would like, simply slide it on, you know, play around with it a little, adjust it, make it a little tighter, make it a little looser, or, you know, just get it close enough that it works for your application. There you go. You have a quick, simple DIY sort of crumpet ring. If you don't like the height or you want it a little sturdier, you can always fold it in half again. It'll make it a little shallower. So if you want to try and control some of the volume and you're just eyeballing it, you can just, oh, okay, it's about the top. And again, you just slide them in together. Run it around the base of your sizer. And there you go. It may not be, you know, more professional, reusable, but it's good enough to get you through your recipe and to get you through your toaster biscuits, your English muffins, your crumpets. If your dough's thick enough, you could even do like cookies or cakes with this. So it's simple, and it just works with something as simple as tin foil. And then again, I just use the bottom of my Cuisinart blender cup just to make it more circular than I can do with my fingers. But that is how you make little tin foil circles for baking and cooking with tin foil.